10.2 Graphing exponential functions. When we do these functions or graph these functions, we are actually just going to be using a function table in order to do so. So we're going to pick values for x, or those x values will be given to you. You're plugging them in for x, and you're simplifying. So if we look at example A, we're just graphing this function, and when we do this, again, I'm going to give you a function table with your x values, so that way you can do this. If not, just use your x values of -3, -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3, and you'll be fine. So for A, we have f of x is equal to 2 to the power of x. So we're going to be plugging in these x values for the x as the exponent. So we're going to have 2 to the power of -2. We'll have 2 to the negative first power, 2 to the power of 0, 2 to the positive first power, and 2 to the 2 to the second power. So this is going to give us 1/4. Remember that 2 to the -2 becomes 1 over 2 to the second. Then it's 1 over 2 to the first, which is 1/2. Then we have anything to the power of 0 is 1. 2 to the first power is 2. 2 to the second power is 4. So these are giving us ordered pairs of -2, 1/4, -1, 1/2, 0, 1, 1, 2, and 2, 4. So we're going to plot these ordered pairs on our coordinate plane. So -2, 1/4 is going to be about here. Then we have -1, 1/2, 0, 1, 1, 2, and 2, 4. So with these, they all have asymptotes, and that just means that it's going to get really close to a specific y value, but never cross it, and then go up and to the right, or up to the left, down to the right, down to the left from there. So these are going to look like kind of like a curved L, if sort of say, or half a U maybe, but with one of those side lengths that are going straight across. For B, we have f of x is equal to 3 times 4 to the power of x. So again, we're going to just use -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2 for our x values. So we're going to have 3 to the power of 3 times 4 to the power of -2, which is going to be 3 times 1/4 to the power of 2. 3 times 4 to the -1st, which is 3 times 1/4. 3 times 4 to the power of 0, which is just 3 times 1. 3 times 4 to the first power, which is 3 times 4. And 3 times 4 to the second power, which is 3 times 16. All right, so that 3 times 1/4 to the second power. 1/4 to the second power is 1 over 16, times 3 is 3/16. 3 times 1/4 is 3/4. 3 times 1 is 3. 3 times 4 is 12. And then the 16 times 3, the 6 and 3 is 18. Carry the 1 is 48. So these are giving us ordered pairs of -2, 3/16, -1, 3/4, 0, 3, 1, 12, and 2, 48. So to graph these, that -2, 3/16 is going to be really, really, really close to that x-axis, but never cross it. Then we have -1, 3/4, which is about here. 0, 3. 0, 3. Then we have 1, 12, which is going to be all the way up here. And then that last order pair that we have, we cannot graph on this coordinate plane because it's too small. The numbers that are on our axis are too small. So we're going to have a line that looks just like this. For our next one, example C, we have f of x is 2 times 2 to the power of x. So again, we're just going to plug these values of x in. So we're going to have 2 times 2 to the power of -2, which is 2 times 1/2 squared. 2 times 2 to the -1st, which is 2 times 1/2 to the first. 2 times 2 to the power of 0, which is 2 times 1. And 2 times 2 to the first power, which is 2 times 2. And 2 times 2 to the second power is 2 times 4. So So if we simplify these, that 1/2 to the second power is 1/4, times 2 is 2 over 4, so that's 1/2. The 2 times 1/2 is 2 over 2, which is 1. 2 times 1 is 2. 2 times 2 is 4, and 2 times 4 is 8. So these are giving us ordered pairs of -2, 1/2, -1, 1, 0, 2, 1, 4, and 2, 8. So first we're going to do the -2, 1/2. Then we have -1, 1, 0, 2, 1, 4, and 2, 8. So again, we're going to make this curve and get it as close as our x-axis as we can, and then go up and to the right from there. For our next one, we have f of x is equal to -2 times 3 to the power of x. So this is going to give us -2 times 3 to the -2nd, which is going to be -2 times 1/3 to the second power. -2 times 3 to the -1st, which is just going to be -2 times 1/3. And we have -2 times 3 to the power of 0, which is -2 times 1. -2 times 3 to the first power is -2 times 3, and -2 times 3 to the second power is -2 times 9. That 1/3 squared is 1/9 times -2 is -2 over 9. The 1/3 times -2 is -2/3. The -2 times 1 is -2. The -2 times 3 is -6, and -2 times 8, or sorry, -2 times 9 is 18, -18. So ordered pairs, we have -2, -2/9, -1, -2/3, 0, -2, 1, -6, and 2, -18. So first ordered pair, -2, -2/9 is going to be about here. Then we have -1, -2/3, which is going to be about here. 0, -2, 1, -6, and 2, -18, which we cannot draw on here. So this is going to get really close to our x-axis and then go down and to the right. For the example B here, we have f of x is equal to -3 times 4 to the power of x. So this is going to give us -3 times 4 to the -2nd, which is going to be -3 times 1/4 to the second power. -3 times 4 to the -1st, which is just -3 times 1/4. Then we have -3 times 4 to the power of 0, which is -3 times 1. -3 to the power of, or times 4 to the power of 1, which is -12, or sorry, let's do -3 times 4. Then -3 times 4 to the second power, which is -3 times 16. So for here, we're going to have 1/4 squared is 1 over 16, times -3 is -3 over 16. The 1/4 times 3 is -3/4. The 1 times -3 is -3. -3 times 4 is -12. And -3 times 16 is -48. So ordered pairs, we're going to have -2, -3 over 16. -1, -3/4. 0, -3. 1, -12. And 2, -48. So to graph these, -2, -3, 16 is going to be really close. Then we have -1, -3/4. 0, -3. 1, -12. Those are going to be the only pairs that we can, order pairs that we can graph here. So get it really close to that x-axis and then go down and to the right. You'll realize with all of these, they're never going to be a straight line. So with these, that curve has to be seen when you go to draw your line on your coordinate planes. For C, we have f of x is equal to negative 3 times 3 to the power of x. So we are going to plug in these x values. So negative 3 times 3 to the power of negative 2. So that's going to be negative 3 times 1 over 3 squared. Negative 3 to the times 3 to the negative first. So that's negative 3 times 1/3. Negative 3 times 3 to the power of 0. So that's just negative 3 times 1. Negative 3 times 3 to the first power is negative 3 times 3. And negative 3 times 3 to the second power is negative 3 times 9. So simplifying these, the 1/3 to the second power is 1/9 times negative 3 is negative 3 over 9. So it's negative 1/3. Negative 3 times 1/3 is negative 1. Negative 3 times 1 is negative 3. 3 times 3 is 9. 9 times negative 3 is negative 27. Or sorry, negative 3 times 3 is negative 9. And then negative 3 times 9 is negative 27. So our ordered pairs are negative 2, negative 1/3, negative 1, negative 1, 0, negative 3, 1, negative 9, and 2, negative 27. First ordered pair, negative 2, negative 1/3. Then we have negative 1, negative 1, 0, negative 3, and 1, negative 9. So this is going to get really close to that x-axis, and then go through these points and go down and to the right. For our next example, we're dealing with fraction or with decimals here instead of fractions. It's the same exact thing. You could turn these decimals into fractions by taking the highest place value that you have there, or really technically the lowest. So whatever place value it's in, putting it over that number. So like for example, A, we have f of x is equal to 0.5 to the power of x. So that 0.5 can be turned into 5 over 10 because that 5 is in the tenths place, which is really 1/2. So it's the same thing as 1/2. So when we do this, we're going to have 0.5 or 1/2 to the power of negative 2. So flip that, it's going to be 2 to the second power. That turns it positive. This is going to give us 4. For the next one, we have 1/2 to the power of negative 1, which is just 2 to the first power, which is 2. Then we have 1/2 to the power of 0. Anything to the power of 0 is 1. Then we have 1/2 to the first power, which is just 1/2. And then 1/2 to the second power, which is 1/4. So these give us negative 2, 4, negative 1, 2, 0, 1, 1, 1/2 or 0.5, and 2, 1/4, or like I said before, 1.25. All right, so, this one's already done for us. All right, so negative 2, 4 is going to be here. Then we have negative 1, 2 is here. Then we have 0, 1 is this point. 1 and 3, 1/2 is about here. And then 1 and 1/4 is about here. And we draw our line through those points, and we're done. For B, this one's graphed for us too already. Look at that. All right, so B, we have 4x, or f of x is equal to 2 times 0.4x. So the 0.4, that 4 is in the tenths place, so it's 4 over 10, which is the same thing as 2/5. So this is the same thing as 2 times 2/5 to the power of negative 2. Turn the negative 2 into a positive 2. It becomes 2 times 2, or sorry, 5 over 2 to the positive second power. For 2 times 2/5 to the negative first, it's going to turn into 2 times 5 over 2. For 2 times 2/5 to the power of 0, we're going to have 2 times 1. 2 times 2/5 to the first power is just 2 times 2/5. And 2 times 2/5 to the second power is 2 times 4 over 25. So to simplify these, the 5 over 2 is 25 over 4. If we multiply that by 2, it becomes 25 over 2. This is the same thing as 12.5. 12.5. So when we do the ordered pair for this, we have negative 2 comma 12.5. For 5 over 2 times 2 is just 5. So that one is going to be negative 1, 5. For 2 times 1, we have 2, which is going to be 0, 2. For 2/5 times 2, that's 4/5. So that's going to be 1 comma 4/5. And for 2 times 4 over 25, it's going to be 8 over 25. So this one is going to be 2 comma 8 over 25. So when we graph these, you're going to have that negative 2, 12.5, which is going to be about up here, just above. Then we have negative 1, 5, which is here, 0, 2, 1, 4 over 5, and then 2, 8 over 25. And we draw our line through those points, then we're done. I think that, yeah, it is. All right, so then for the next page, we have C, which is drawn for us also. Let's see. Oh, look at that. They're all drawn for us. All right, so with this one, we're given 3 times 0.5x to the power of x. We know that 0.5 is the equivalent of 1/2. So this is going to be 3 times 1/2 to the negative second, which is 3 times 2 to the positive second. Then we have 3 times 1/2 to the negative first, which is 3 times 2. 3 times 1/2 to the power of 0 is 3 times 1. 3 times 1/2 to the power of 1 is just 3 times 1/2. And 3 times 1/2 to the second power is 3 times 1/4. So to simplify these, the 2 squared is 4 times 3 is 12. 2 times 3 is 6. 1 times 3 is 3. 3 times 1/2 is 3 over 2, or 1.5. And 3 times 1/4 is 3/4, or 0.75. So this is going to give us negative 212, negative 1, 6, 0, 3, 1, 1.5, and 2, 0.75. You could have left them as the fractions. There's nothing wrong with that. I do this so that way it's easier for me to see where on my graph I am, so that way it's more precise. For that negative 2, 12, you're here. Negative 1, 6 is here. 0, 3 is here. 1, 1.5 is here. And then 2, 0.75 is here. For our next set of examples, we have negatives that we're dealing with negatives, so there's a reflection here. It's going to be opening downwards with these. So for example A, part 4, we have negative 0.5 to the power of x, so this is going to be negative 0.5 to the negative second power. So this is also negative 1/2 to the negative second, which is negative times 2 to the second. For the next one, we have negative 1/2 to the negative first, so that's negative times 2 to the first, negative times 1/2 to the power of 0, which is just negative times 1, negative times 1/2 to the first power, which is just a negative times 1/2, a negative times 1/2 to the power of 2, which is a negative times 1/4. So this is going to give us negative 4, negative 2, negative 1, negative 1/2, negative 1/4. So negative 2, negative 4, negative 1, negative 2, 0, negative 1, 1, negative 1/2, and 2, negative 1/4. So negative 2, negative 4 is here. Then we have negative 1, negative 2, 0, negative 1, 1, negative 1 half, and 2, negative 1 fourth. For B, we have 3 times 0.4 to the power of x. So that 0.4 is the same thing as 4 over 10. So that's 2 over 5. So we're going to have negative 3 times 2 fifths to the power of negative 2. That's going to be negative 3 times 5 over 2 squared. The 5 over 2 squared is 25 over 4, times negative 3 is negative 75 over 4. For the next one, negative 3 times 2 fifths to the negative first power is negative 3 times 5 over 2. That's going to be negative 15 over 2. Then we have negative 3 times 2 fifths to the power of 0, which is just negative 3 times 1. So that one's negative 3. Then we have negative 3 times 2 fifths to the power of 1. So that's going to just be negative 3 times 2 fifths. Oops. So that's negative 6 fifths. And then negative 3 times 2 fifths squared is negative 3 times 4 over 25. And then 4 over 25 times negative 3 is negative 12 over 25. So for the 75 over 4, the negative 75 over 4, we can simplify that to be 18.75. So this is going to be negative 2 comma negative 18.75. For the 15 over 2, we're going to have negative 1 comma negative 7.5. Then we have 0, negative 3, 1, negative 1.2. And then 2, 12 over 25 is 0.48. So that's negative 0.48. So when we graph these ordered pairs, the negative 2, negative 18.75 is not going to be on our graph. The negative 1, 7.5 is negative 7.5 is here. The 0, negative 3 is here. The 1, negative 1.2 is there. And the 2, 0.48 is here. For C, we have negative 2 times 0.5 to the power of x. So remember, the 0.5 is the same thing as 1 half. So this is negative 2 times 1 half to the power of negative 2. So really that's negative 2 times 2 squared. Negative 2 times 1 half to the power of negative 1. So that's really negative 2 times 2. Negative 2 times 1 half to the power of 0 is really negative 2 times 1. Negative 2 times 1 half times 1 is just negative 2 times 1 half. And negative 2 times 1 half to the second power is negative 2 times 1 fourth. So this is going to give us 2 squared is 4 times negative 2 is negative 8. 2 times negative 2 is negative 4. Negative 2 times 1 is negative 2. Negative 2 times 1 half is negative 1. Negative 2 times 1 fourth is negative 2 over 4, which is negative 1 half. So negative 2, negative 8. Negative 1, negative 4. 0, negative 2. 1, negative 1. And lastly, 2, negative 1 half. So these ordered pairs that we're going to get from this, negative 2, negative 8 is here. Then we have negative 1, negative 4, which is here. 0, negative 2, 1, negative 1, and 1 negative half.